Café and Networking Podcast promotes successful business experts. I'm Tom Reaoch, known as the King of Networking, connecting people throughout the world from my podcast studio in Brazil. Today we talk with Andrew Kitley, and he's joining us from London, England. Andrew Kitley is CEO at the Kitall Group, providing structural and temporary works design. Andrew is pioneer in breaking taboos and stereotypes around dyslexia, and he's the host of the popular Neurodiversity Podcast, The Invisible Light. So Andrew, how do you manage your ADHD and cope with impulsivity, procrastination, distractions?
So thank you, Tom, for having me on, first of all. As you know, you'll probably tell by how fast I speak, it's part of my ADHD. So I have ADHD and dyslexia, and I manage them both in very similar ways, actually. For my ADHD, I find the best thing to do in a business sense, because I own 10 businesses, is time blocking rather than creating to-do lists. To-do lists I jump around too much. It's hard to focus. So I time block depending on each subject I want to do or each business I want to work on. And then another really important thing for me is I use mentors as or an accountability buddy, which is really good. These people, I like to surround myself with truth tellers, and these are the people that I don't want to hear any compliments about myself. I don't want to hear any good news. All I want is feedback about what I'm doing wrong or need to work on.
Just tell you the way it is, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, that's really important for me. It took a lot of adjustment first for them to turn around and go, for me to tell myself, look, I'm going to have to put up with whatever anyone tells me. But once I kind of got over that initial, don't worry about judgment, it's great when people come on. I have one guy who's very to the point. I mean, I'll phone him and go, oh, I was supposed to do this, but I didn't start that. I didn't record that one because I was worried about I didn't have the right software, and it just go mad and say, no, get rid of that, drop that out. You need to do that. And also the other big problem is I have a lot of ideas. I mean, I could literally come up with 10 easy business ideas a day. So I have a rule. I have a book. Actually, it's a digital book, but I have a book next to me. Whenever I come up with an idea throughout the day, I write it down in the book, and my agreement is myself, I will not do any research or anything on it. I will just literally write it down, and it's off my computer. I did used to put them on my computer.
That's a beautiful secret.
Yeah. If I put them on my computer, the problem is it will go in an area where all my ideas are. And when I open the page, all I would see is these hundreds of ideas I've come up with. And then my brain will start going, why haven't we done that one? What have we done about this? So I just write it in a blank sheet all the time. And I just write it down, and then I don't think about it. And the idea is, if I do have a point where I need to come back to an idea, I can open up and take it out again. Or when I cut out at least a couple of hours in a week to sit there and just have ideas, because this is really important. A lot of people get too focused on their businesses and not on ideas. Ideas are great to have. You need to, again, this comes back to the time blocking. You need to time block things out and make sure you give yourself time to think. I like to do that. For me, being in front of a computer all day is quite bad. Obviously my ADHD with the lighting's different, so I like to get out into nature as much as I can. I'm in central London. It's hard to find nature here, but sometimes just being close to the Thames, walking down the Thames is a good solution for me.
Beautiful.
But yeah, and with my dyslexia is I find that these days my dyslexia don't really affect me much, for the simple fact that technology these days block it. Providing I'm working on a computer, I don't really struggle with my dyslexia. That's why I always kind of promote dyslexia being such a gift, because with modern technology, it really has removed all the obstacles. I find the ADHD plays a bigger harshness on my life. One thing I'm doing at the moment, I'm actually undertaking a study to see whether exercise and diet can really change how your ADHD affects you. And I'm finding that every morning now I exercise. I go to the gym every morning before I start work, and it's allowing me much more focus on my work, which you could argue is not just to do with ADHD. That would be good for anyone. But for me, it's really controlling my impulsiveness.
Right. Now, back to the impulsiveness and let's call your book of secrets, your book of ideas. Was the invisible light one of those ideas that you had at some time in the past?
Sorry, invisible gift, Tom. Yeah.
I'm sorry, the invisible gift. I said invisible light. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yes, the invisible gift was. It was a bit weird for me when I started the invisible gift. I realised that I grew up thinking that all my quirky ways were actually was a massive benefit for me. And then it wasn't until I started discussing them with other people that I realized not everyone sees ADHD and dyslexia as a good thing. So I'm always a positive thing. I'm definitely a half full glass sort of person, not a half empty. And I always think, as much as a lot of bad things have happened to me, particularly around education, I find that actually, as bad as the bad is, the bad also creates the good. I'm now a stronger person because of it. You know, being adaptive and being able to fail is a really hard thing that most people struggle with when they just start work. But you know, struggling as a child and failing regularly has made me a much stronger adult. And I regularly tell people that the best thing you can actually do is fail, because if you fail forward, you're never actually failing. It's if you're just not learning from your failures is when you've truly failed.
I agree with what you just said, but I'm from a generation where years ago, ADHD and dyslexia weren't even words that people used. When I was in school, people weren't aware that was a thing. All right.
Wasn't aware as a condition you could have.
No, right. It was that. I mean, you're undisciplined, you were a bad boy or a bad child or whatever, you were a failure, right? And so we're in a different day. And what I want to commend you on, and that's probably where my mental confusion came from, saying the invisible light instead of the invisible gift. What you have done and do, and hopefully will continue to do, is to show the light on if you want to call it a condition, on a reality that I was never aware of as a child, and for most of my adult life was never aware of it. In working environments and being with other people, relating, being in front of a person like yourself, maybe becoming frustrated in my own sense because I wouldn't give time to listen from a person or to help that person. The other thing, your truth teller, I think that's an important thing to have. A mentoring in any sense of business, but in a personal life, having someone who will share with you in a very real open way is an absolute necessity for anything. To find a person like that's the challenge.
Yes, finding them is always the challenge. And, a lot of people say pay for them. A lot of people say just find them. But to be honest, it doesn't matter. They don't have to be someone it's great to have people that have achieved more than you, because then they kind of, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend most time with. But really what you want to do is find someone that's just truthful, because we tend these days particularly to surround ourselves with people that all pat us on the back until we're great, and that doesn't really help anyone. So it's really important to get down to the nitty gritty and find out what you're doing badly, and what you can improve on.
And goodly.
Yeah.
It's badly and goodly. So it's not, it's what we do. The classifying it as good or bad, that's another thing. The important thing is to do something. I think the important thing that we want to do, we want to help you be found. So to that point, Andrew, how can our listeners find you?
So if they want to find me, they can find me on LinkedIn. My name's Andrew Kitley, which I'm always there, so you can always get me on there. Other than that, you can literally find me on any social media where you just use my name. And you can listen to my podcast, The Invisible Gift, which is on all major platforms, including Spotify and Apple. So you can get that there.
Very good. Well, I'm happy I found you.
Thank you. And you, Tom. Love it.
Thanks for being here, okay?
Thank you for having me on.
All right. And again, for our listeners, it's Andrew Kitley, Andrew, and the last name Kitley. You find him on LinkedIn and the Invisible Gift podcast on Apple and all major podcast platforms. Café Networking is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information at focusmi.com. Talk to Tom, talk to the world. Thanks for listening. Until the next time here at Café and Networking Podcast.